I think the way I approach things is all down to metrics and ultimately metrics that lead to conversion at the bottom of the funnel and lead to revenue generation. So that could be both like efficiency of pipeline creation, and then it can also be just pipeline itself. I don't necessarily care about the raw number. I care about the high intent pipeline that'll actually convert to opportunities.
Welcome back to the Profit and Prove podcast. I am joined by Scott Davidson, someone who brings a very different lens to marketing through his background in finance and go-to-market systems. He's spent his career helping companies connect pipeline, performance, and real business outcomes, not just surface level metrics. In this episode, we get into what marketers get wrong about attribution, why pipeline forecasting is often overlooked, and how to actually make marketing make sense to a CFO. This conversation is about moving from activity to accountability. Scott, welcome. Thrilled to have you.
Thanks so much for having me. Excited to be here.
So you come from a finance infrastructure type of background. That's not typical for marketers. And that's really what piqued my interest to bring you on this show today. So let's talk about how does that change the way you look at marketing performance?
It's definitely different. I think the way I approach things is all down to metrics and ultimately metrics that lead to conversion at the bottom of the funnel and lead to revenue generation. So that could be both like efficiency of pipeline creation, and then it can also be just, pipeline itself. I don't necessarily care about the raw number. I care about the high intent pipeline that'll actually convert to opportunities.
Yes, which is very tricky, right? To have the right kind of client, buyer, see whatever piece of marketing it is and actually make it through your entire funnel, right? Like that's pretty tricky.
Yes, exactly.
So one thing when I think about funnel and pipeline is like how you get people into your funnel. I think a lot about attribution. And in the Lifesight world, it's kind of the old way of thinking is last touch, first touch, trying to find the whole customer journey. Now we've moved past that kind of into a whole marketing methodology. But the main reason is so that the companies can make better decisions. So let's kind of dive into that. Do you think marketers are still over relying on what I would say an outdated model like first or last touch?
Yeah, I definitely don't prescribe to, and I think being an outsider, like I can just look at it and say, neither of these work for me. I'd rather look at like multi-touch and just the presence or absence of a certain type of touch in a closed won or closed lost opportunity. And I think that can tell me more about whether or not a campaign or something on the marketing side was successful. I don't care when it happened necessarily. It's just that it was part of the journey and it may have played a role. So if you see 100% of opportunities, X thing happened, I think that tells you more about, even if it's in the middle or first or last or who cares when, tells you that something about that is important. So I'd rather look at the presence and absence than when exactly it happens.
Yes. Yeah, I agree. And also the testing of it, right? Doing a holdout test to figure out the actual incrementality of it to see if the sales were really attributed.
That's true. Yes. It's kind of like a concept in budgeting where it's called zero-based, right? So it's like if I just set the slate clean and you needed to justify everything that you're doing from zero, not just because we did it last year, how would you go about it? So it's a similar concept there.
Oh, I like that. And that leads you to more of a truthful way of measuring marketing. And it's nice to have this conversation with you because you kind of look at it from the finance side, right? So you're looking for a source of truth. So from your perspective, what does a more truthful way to measure marketing actually look like? And we can keep this in the B2B environment if I think that's one of your specialties.
Yeah. So B2B is definitely my background. I think there's different ways to look at things. So I think at like a high seeing outside of the jungle and just looking down type of approach, looking at how much you're spending to generate $1 of pipeline and trying to benchmark that against, the industry or competitors. That's just like a quick gut check. Like, am I in the right ballpark? Without getting down into like the nitty gritty of specific channels or campaigns or anything like that. So that's a place I like to start. And then I like to look at just pipeline coverage. So depending on what segment we're operating in, how much coverage do we need of our bookings target, and then different conversion rates. So that can be conversion by channel. And again, I think you do need to look at the presence or absence of that activity and not just it started there or ended there. So, if it's like SDR sourced, it may not have started as an SDR source, but if an SDR was a part of the conversation, I want to look at conversion rates of deals that had SDRs involved in some capacity, for example. So
we're thinking about, I already have my follow-up questions going, but we're talking about the way to measure it in a truthful way. And I think what you're getting at is the different segments of the funnel. So if it with an SDR, that's bottom of the funnel. And that started to make me think about ICP, right? You really have to know your customer, and especially once they get on the phone with you. And you've done a lot of work around ICPs. How often should companies actually be redefining and checking out who their ideal customers are?
The answer is it depends. And I think you have to kind of strike that balance of like the administrative burden and the folks that have to go through and comb through and understand, the different data points to understand if you want to make a change or should make a change and things like that. And if you're a business that has a handful of deals a month or quarter, like you're not going to have enough meaningful data versus like a really high velocity business. So I think the answer depends on that. But, as a general rule of thumb, I would think, when you're doing your quarterly metrics and you're looking back at things, you definitely would want to see if anything is jumping out or abnormal and dig in. So is that it's coming from a different industry, a different size of company, different geographies, like things like that. You definitely want to keep tabs probably on like a monthly and quarterly basis. And then a quarterly basis, like maybe a good point in time to say, okay, maybe let's test something else or change something.
Yeah, and change something, because sometimes you can be pleasantly surprised. Like, hey, we have a whole nother ICP that we weren't catering to, and now we can refine our messagings and talk to them. And that is always what I'm looking for. Like looking for the nice surprises of like, hey, this was our customer. We weren't thinking about them. Do a little bit of brand work to bring them in and expand. I call that free money. It's like, hey, we just have another vertical that we can pull on.
Yeah. And to your point, like, I do think it's worth bucketing like a component of your budget just to try experiments. Because if you're just locked into, this is my persona and this is the type of company we go out to, and you're not spending whatever, 10 to 30% of your budget, like testing these things and iterating, you'll never find those free money opportunities. So
that's great advice. Yes. Allocating some of your budget just to see who your new potential customers could be. Yeah, I like that idea. You put that in play. And it's interesting hearing that from you from a finance thing where you're like, it's okay to have some money in there to play with.
Yeah, I think you definitely may not hear that from every finance person or finance leader. But I think if you can just create alignment and create like do business planning as part of the budgeting process, I don't think that the budget should not run your business. Like your thoughts and approach to business should run the business, and the budget should follow from that. So, if you have a good theory about, I think it's worth testing here, you're having a conversation like rooted in a hypothesis rather than just like, here's a number on a page.
Yeah, that's good advice. I do feel like I've been caught up in worrying about the numbers and the budget and having that drive a lot. So it's nice to hear like, doesn't have to drive your business, right? You don't have to have the budget own you, but you need to own the budget and have some room to play. As marketers, we all want to play and have fun and see, well, what's this going to be? Where is that? We talk so much about forecasting and pipeline and margins that you do want to leave a little bit of space for what I'll say, discovery. And now also when we're talking about this, I was thinking when you just said, don't let the budget run your company. I was like, well, that's like an AI. That makes me feel like AI, right? Like we're going to plug this into AI. Here's our parameters. And now AI will run it. And AI does add a lot of value in marketing. I also think when it comes down to the budget and what we're doing, marketers may overuse AI because they have that fear of overspending or getting it wrong. So we'll lean too heavily on AI. What do you think? Like, where do you think AI is being overused?
I mean, things are moving so fast, and there just needs to be like similarly some level of like experimentation and just trying to stay ahead of the trends and see what is working and not working. And that part of it alone could be a full-time job. But I think you want to be mindful of like, AI slop, like slop cannon and spray and pray methodology. Like, a lot of these things that were born out of kind of like the last generation pre-AI, like spray and pray. Now AI is just accelerating that and making it easier to do. So again, like I'm going to tie it back to metrics, but if you can track the outcome that you're producing from using AI, and not just in like saved hours, but an actual like this is generating results in terms of high converting pipeline or whatever your North Star metric is. That's kind of the way I would approach it, because you can send a billion emails and none of them convert. I don't really care about the volume. I care about the volume that's converting. So I think it's more focusing on the quality and what components of the quality that you can accelerate, make sure you're maintaining, but accelerate, whether it's like the administrative components on the back end, or if it is email generation, for example, like AI can do that. So as long as the quality stays high, like I think it's worth continuing to pour into.
Yes. And it has to feel human, right? Like high quality feels human. People know when it's being thrown at you and you didn't use your brain. Yeah. But automations are great. I encourage everything to be automated as long as it still has that human component to it. What do you think about like striking the balance between automation and remaining human? And you're just talking about like a high touch approach.
I think you have to be cognizant of just resource allocation and kind of, focus. So if you know that certain type enterprise accounts require 10 touches and an exec is typically involved and, things like that, AI is not going to bring a CEO into the third conversation and in a sales cycle. Like that's going to be the seller or you or whomever. So I think just trying to understand where AI can actually fit in the life cycle, both like sales and marketing. And then maybe it's like a tier 3 account or something that kind of falls in that experimentation bucket. And it's like ancillary to the ICP, or you're trying out something new and testing there, and then always having like a human in the loop. So I'm not just going to go like fire away. I'm typically trying to iterate on like a small subset of a process. And then once I can understand that the output is good or good enough, then I can start to continue to build it.
Totally agree. Yes. And then that's what it is. It's like connecting AI marketing efforts to your real business outcomes. I like how you just brought that completely full circle for all of us. Before we wrap up, I kind of want to ask, with your experience, finance side, marketing side, what do you think marketers still fundamentally get wrong? And we can stay on that same topic when it comes to connecting marketing efforts with real business outcomes.
I think there's always opportunity to just get yourself closer to the business and route. And, live in that world to understand like what's ultimately going to produce outcomes and how can we kind of like following the data. I think there's always an opportunity for that across various areas of the business. And I don't think marketing is an exception there. And kind of going back and always asking, like, just because we've done this before, doesn't make sense that it's something that we still continue to do, especially as things are changing so quickly. So, it's very easy to just say, we've done this before. It costs this amount of money. We're going to just continue it because that's what we do. And if you don't take a deep dive and like step back and actually look into the weeds of something, it may turn out that it may have made sense in the past and you may not want to do it on a go forward basis, or maybe it never made sense. So I think just a skill that like any practitioner or like operator within a business can take is just to have set points or set checkpoints where, you back up, take a look at the data and just ensure that like those business outcomes are being achieved.
Yes, completely agree. Very well said. So Scott, if our listeners want to get a hold of you to talk to go-to-market systems, finance, all the things you specialize in, what is the best way?
You can find me on LinkedIn, Scott Davidson, easy to find there. And if you want to kind of take a look at my website, it's driveroi.ai. And yeah, we specialize in kind of that go-to-market infrastructure and systems to help you accelerate a lot of the marketing work that you do and make sure that the things that work faster and better and more efficiently.
I love it. All right, Scott, I wish you the best of luck with pipeline and everything you have going on. And the market is changing so much. I feel like we're going to have you back on real soon. Until then, stay profitable.